Welcome back, crew. Pathfinder 2e is our game of the month for January, and we are diving into one of my favorite tabletop pieces, and one of the areas I think Pathfinder really excels. We're going to be going over combat, HP, and how you die within the Pathfinder 2e system. So stay tuned for that. Before we dive in, one shout out I want to give is for our game of the month actual play. So we'll be playing a live play of Pathfinder 2e this Thursday, January 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on my channel, Tegan J Gaming. You could reach it at twitch.com, Tegan J Gaming. Drop a follow if you haven't. But we're going to be going through the system, hopefully showing off more than a few combats. It is really putting the system through its paces and kind of showing how a Pathfinder 2e game can be at your table. So come through, drop a follow, and get to see it played live. And if that alone isn't enough to tempt you, as always, we're trying to get more people playing different RPGs. So we'll be giving away a PDF copy of the Pathfinder 2e system for one lucky viewer. So come through. We always wrap it off at a random point in the game. So come through, stay tuned, and see how the system goes, and maybe you'll be able to bring it back for you and your crew. But today we are getting into combat. I love tactical combat, and I think that's really one of the areas Pathfinder 2e excels at. So we're going to be going through a few pieces of that combat. We're going to show some of the unique actions you can take. We're going to be going over how cover, flanking work. And we're going to be going over HP and resting and all of that too, and how you can die in the Pathfinder 2e system. Just so it makes sense, and when you do come to the table, you're prepared to be able to go in and fight that dragon. And if worse comes to worse, put your character to rest. So let's dive in. So first thing that we're going to be taking a look at are the HP rules for the system. So we're going to be going to page 459 if you've got the PDF or the big book for the system. But we want to go over the knocked out, dying, and wounded effects. Those are both big pieces of the Pathfinder 2e system, but I think they can be some things that are a little bit confusing, especially if you're somebody that came from 5e before. So, biggest thing, so simple, if you're coming from 5e, this is going to be familiar. If you drop to 0 HP, you automatically fall unconscious. And similarly, if something super big hits you, like you jump off a roof or something, and you do double your max HP damage, you're just straight dead. You don't pass go, you're dead. But usually that shouldn't be happening. But typically in an average combat, if you fall to 0 HP, you're going to be knocked unconscious, and you're going to have the dying 1 condition. So with that, when you go unconscious, it's a little bit different from 5e. Rather than kind of keeping your usual turn order, you go one before the creature that knocked you out. So if you were at initiative 20 before the creature knocked you out at initiative 12, you're going to be right above them at initiative 13. Unless somebody else had 13, you'll just be right above that creature for your initiative with this. So keep that in mind. It gives you a full round before that creature can go again. So if you got knocked out by a wolf or something feral or a monster that just really doesn't like you and wants you dead, you get a chance to go before he goes, and hopefully you'll be able to recover. Hopefully your team gets you up. Hopefully something happens so you don't keep progressing down the track. But let's say somebody wasn't able to get you up. So as I mentioned before, you've got that dying 1 condition. What that means is on your turn, once it gets up to you in the initiative order, you're going to roll a recovery check. And it's going to be DC 10 plus your level of dying. So generally it's always going to start at 11, I should say. And if you get a critical success, you decrease that by 2. And if you remove all of your dying conditions, you're just unconscious. You're unstable and unconscious. You're no longer bleeding out or dying. You're just there and out of the fight until somebody gets you back up to 1 HP. But let's say you get a regular success, 1, 2. So if you get in that first success, you're good to go. But if you fail, you increase that dying by 1. So you'd be dying 2, and you'd have a DC 12 next turn. If you critically fail, you increase that dying by 2, which would put you at a DC, or dying 3, DC 13. Now, with dying, you've got 4. So if you get to 4, you're dead. So it could be pretty nerve-wracking, especially if you critically fail that first check, or somebody hits you, because if somebody hits you, if they hit you with a regular, just a kind of standard successful attack, that's +1 dying. If they hit you for a crit, which you are on the ground unconscious, so you have a -4 penalty to your AC, which is going to be a little bit more likely to crit off that, it's going to be a 2. So it's one of those ones you can die fairly quickly in the system, depending on how it goes. They do give a lot of leniency with moving your initiative up before that creature, so it gives you a full round before you have to roll dying or all that, so you're hopefully your team's helping you out there. But if it doesn't, your team can be you could die pretty quickly on that side. So now, let's say somebody gets you back up. Let's say you stabilized, or somebody got you back up to 1 HP. Once you get back up to 1 HP, you lose that dying, but you gain a wounded one. And what wounded one means, and this is like one of the areas I feel like is a little confusing for some new players, but wounding one means if you, let's say they brought you back up to 5 HP, you're fighting an ogre, you've got wounded one, and that guy knocks you down again, hits you for 6 HP, you're back unconscious. Rather than having dying one, with the wounded one, you're going to add that wounded one to the dying one. You're at dying 2 to start. And if it happens again, you get back up and then knocked back down. You're at wounded 2, putting you at dying 3. You see this gets terribler and terrible until worse comes to worse and you die. So this is one of the, I like this thing because if you've watched my channels before, especially if you watched me on my Dungeon Jedi Masters one for Star Wars 5e, I've got my own little wound variant on that. But I hate the yo-yo that 5e sometimes encourages for healing. This makes it deadly. I mean, if you keep yo-yoing up, you're eventually not going to come back. So I think that's a cool penalty to have for it. I think it keeps everybody engaged and trying to focus on healing outside of just waiting for somebody to fall and get brought back up. So really cool there. With that too, the last thing I will say is if you have hero points, which are recommended, everybody should start with 1 hero point. I know a lot of groups have variants. I'll probably have a variant for my group as well. But the hero point, you could spend all of your hero points to go to stabilized. So basically it won't bring you back up, but you won't have to roll dying. You do this at the start of your turn. And the cool thing with it is if you don't have any wounded one or any wounded points to start, you won't gain a wounded from using your hero points to do it. But to clarify though, it does use all of your hero points. Check out that heroic recovery section. So it's going to burn all your cool stuff, but it stops you from dying, which is really cool. Because initially when I read it, I thought it would just take 1 hero point, which I like everybody gets 1 to start. But this is kind of a cool last ditch effort, I think. It takes everything you got to keep yourself in the game and not dying. So I like that. But that was just a little bit about the HP section. One thing we're going to touch on before we dive into the more combat-y meat of this episode is how it works with healing in the system and resting. So with the system, you can do rest and daily preparations. This is a very different from 5e in one aspect. So like usual, you get to get your spell points back, your focus points back. If you prepare your spells, you get to prepare those spells. But HP is real different here. HP, rather than just like going from near dead to full HP, you're going to gain your HP, your Constitution modifier, times your level back in HP. So let's say you've got a con mod of 2, you're a level 3 PC, you're going to gain 6 HP left. So if you've had a pretty big fight, this could be like a hard. You may have to down some potions, do some first aid, magical healing, or just take a long-term rest because this could be. It takes a while to get especially if you're a high-level PC. It can take a while to recoup that HP. Or even low levels, because with my fighter we built, Laro, he was at 20 HP. He'd have regained, what would that be, 2 HP, because level 1 times con mod of 2 on a long rest. So if something beat him up, it's going to take him a little while to get back there. But cool thing with this though is, especially in Game Masters, I encourage you for any long-term campaign, whether it be Pathfinder, 5e, anything you're playing, give your characters some downtime. And one of the cool things they can do with downtime is they can do a long rest, or long-term rest, I should say, which allows you to spend an entire day and night just resting. And rather than just HP or your con mod times your level, it's your con mod times your level times 2. Or twice your level, I should say. So that's same for Laro. Rather than gaining the 2 times as level 1 fighter, it'd be 2 times 4. So it helps you build that up. And level 1's kind of a hard one because you're just level 1, not a big of a jump there. But for other ones, you're going to get bigger of a jump and more return back for it too. So kind of a good way, especially if you have a big boss fight, give them a day or 2 just to lick their wounds and get back up to full. But definitely players too. We'll have a whole other video too that goes into more healing stuff. Medicine skill, first aid, healing. There's a ton you can do there. Check that out, especially if you want to stay in the fight for a little bit longer. But yeah, now that we've got that, let's dive into the basics of combat. So first thing we're going to go over with combat is kind of the structure a little bit. For 5e players, this is all familiar, or this is mostly familiar for you. So at the start of the combat, GM's going to call for initiative, and you're going to roll initiative. This is the big change here. Initiative isn't its own skill or own trait here. It's a different resource called perception. And big thing, if you haven't watched the character creation or my skills video, perception is not a skill in this one. You usually get it by either your ancestry, most likely your class, and you can get different feats to modify it. But typically in an average fight, you're going to roll perception for initiative, and that's going to determine the order everybody goes in. Now, there could be unique situations where perception may not be the core skill you roll. Like let's say like you're climbing up a mountain, maybe you will do athletics instead, or maybe you are kind of hiking through a trail, another athletics one, or maybe you're sneaking up and looking to steal something from somebody, and maybe you'll do stealth for it. So these can be modified, and typically your GM is going to call out what the skill will be for the initiative, and then everybody will roll that skill. Sometimes players try to advocate for yourselves too, but usually it will be kind of a global level for that, depending unless the DM kind of allows for a little bit of variance. So now with the initiatives in there, basically you're going to be able to go through kind of like normal. So you'll wait for your turn to come up. On your turn, remember with Pathfinder 2e, it's not like 5e where you have a bonus action movement. Pathfinder 2e, you get 3 actions that you can bring to bear, and those 3 actions refresh on your turn. So you get all those actions back, and you can kind of determine what you want to do. And now that's actually what we're kind of go over next. We're going to touch on the different actions you have available to you in the combat. Now, we're going to go through this, and I'm going to point out the unique ones and kind of focus on them a little bit more, kind of just highlighting the other ones quickly, because there's a lot of stuff here that's fairly simple and won't really surprise you or take much explanation. So, Aid one is a cool one. I like this one, and I like that it's only one action to do so. One action and your reaction, I should say, to do so. So Aid one, it has that little reaction button, but if you read into it, I wish I put both the reaction and like a little action diamond next to it, because to aid someone, you need to prepare on your turn to aid them, which will take one action. And then once that trigger or whatever they're doing comes up, you'll be able to roll whatever the corresponding skill or an attack roll. Basically, you have a conversation with your GM, and they'll be able to kind of point you in the right direction and what to roll for this. And typically, it's going to be a DC 20. But the GM can modify that higher or lower depending on what you're aiding them from and what's going on there. And then if you beat that DC 20, you're going to allies and get a +1 circumstance bonus to their roll. I know that seems small, but it's going to be a big deal, especially if you're trying to get somebody to critical success. Every little bit helps. And then if you critically succeed on your check, they get a +2 bonus. And if you have a master, you get a +3, legendary +4 in the skill training for it too. So it's pretty cool on that side. It does have teeth though, so if you do fail, they get a -1 circumstance penalty. So make sure if you're aiding them, you're doing a stat that works well for you. And GMs too, I encourage you to make it get DC 20. Make it relevant to the players. So make sure it is a reasonable, fair check for what they're trying to do. If they're trying to do something crazy, bump it up. If it seems like something that you could reasonably aid with, maybe bump it down a little bit too. All up to you on that side. But so crawl, not a big one. You can basically move at prone. You can move 5 feet and still stay prone. So if you're trying to avoid notice or avoid some ranged attacks, get a little bit of bonus there. Delay is pretty cool. This one's a free action, no action necessary, but it allows you to take yourself out of the initiative order, and then you can put yourself back in kind of after the end of another creature's turn. So wherever you kind of like on that side. So if you're initiative 5 or 20 before, and it has to be going down to remember that, you could go through and wait till creature 10 goes and put yourself right after him, and that's your new initiative. So when you do that, remember you can only go down, and whatever it is your new initiative. And if you don't go after a creature during that, you lose all your actions for that turn, and I think you stay where you were before in the initiative. So really cool one on that. Gives some good tactics. I know characters always want to do this in 5e, but now we've got some cool rules for it in Pathfinder 2e. So drop, prone, escape. Both those are fairly straightforward. The interact, so if you do pick up an object or interact with an object or activate a magic object, which is another action in there too, that will take one action. That's your interact action, so keep that in mind. You got leap. Ready is another cool one too. Ready, basically it ends your turn, but you set up a specific trigger against a specific creature an action that you're going to take. So let's say if you say, if that goblin reaches for his axe, I'm going to strike at him with my sword. So you have to have a specific creature, specific trigger, and then a specific action you're going to take. This takes 2 of your turn's actions. So if you wanted to hit the goblin and say, hey, if you reach for that sword, I'm going to hit you again, you could do so, but remember the multi-attack penalty applies, which we'll go over a little bit later. Release, dropping an object. That's a free action, nothing too big there. Seek's another cool one. We'll touch on that a little bit. So seek, if you're looking for an object or a creature that is hidden from you, you could spend one of your actions seeking. This one's pretty sweet. Basically, it's a perception check, but it's a secret check rolled by the DM. You could set like a certain area you're looking for, depending on how specific you need to be. So you could say, hey, I'm doing 15 feet around me, or hey, I'm doing a 30-foot line this way. Basically, the GM can let you know what you need to do in that situation, but you can set those. And then the GM rolls behind the screen and says, hey, it compares if somebody's hidden there against a stealth check, and they give you the information you find. So there could be somebody that's nobody there, or nobody looking there in the area that you're looking in, or they could be there and you failed that check. So I think that's cool. It keeps the suspense going for the stealth stuff, and I think that'll be fun to play around with. You've got Seek Motive, which will allow you to figure out what different creatures or what's going on with them, why they're doing something. Stand, pretty easy. Standing from prone takes an action here, so remember that. Step. So this one's pretty cool. It's Careful Step. If you've had any 3-5 players in 5e mention this is an old school one, but basically allows you to disengage a bit, so you can get that 5 feet away from them and without triggering an attack of opportunity. You've also got Strike and Stride. Stride's real easy. That's your movement speed. Strike, that's an attack action. And then you got Take Cover, which we'll touch on a little bit later in the video. So those are kind of your core actions on that side. You've got some special actions here. We're not going to really touch on those. Coolest one, Raise Shield. If you're a marshal with a shield, make sure you're doing this so your turns get that AC buff. But now we're going to go into how to make an attack. So attacks. 3 different categories. You've got melee attacks, ranged attacks, and spell attack rolls. And one of the actions they didn't list in that section is spell attack. We're probably going to do a whole video on spells down the line, so we'll go more into that later. But for these ones, for regular attack rolls, if you're doing a melee attack, it's going to be either your strength or dexterity if it's a finesse weapon, plus your d20, plus your level of proficiency, plus any additional mods. So if with Laro, he is expert with his trident, so it'd be his level 1, so that would be 2 plus the level 1, so 3 plus his strength of 4 plus his d20, so 1d20 plus 7. So makes it easy on that side. With that too, you're able to, when you roll that attack, if it is a success, when you add damage for this one, for strength, you actually get to add your modifier in for melee attacks. So with that, he'd add that plus 4 strength into his damage for that ability there. Now for ranged attacks, pretty similar, but you roll a d20 plus dexterity modifier to hit, plus any additional modifiers and proficiencies. Now, if you do hit with that, you just roll the weapon's damage and any modifiers. For ranged attacks, you don't add your dexterity or strength to it. Now, too, let's go back to melee as well. So let's say you used a finesse weapon for the attack roll. That's not like 5e where you get to add finesse for the damage. You're still going to roll or still add your strength modifier to the damage. So that's something to be aware of. You're always going to want to have a little bit of strength usually, because unless you're doing ranged. Because you want to make sure you get a little bit extra damage on that side, which I think is cool because 5e strength was kind of like the redheaded stepchild, we'll say, because it wasn't really necessary unless you were building a strength build. Otherwise, you could completely avoid it. Pathfinder 2e, you can't. You need to have a little bit of extra bonus for it. So, last thing we'll touch on in attacks is a big thing, the map multi-attack penalty. So a lot of people, when they first come to Pathfinder 2e, and they see you get 3 actions, they want to just like attack away. So with this, your first attack is made regular, but you're going to have a circumstance penalty for it on your second attack. If you're just using a regular weapon, it's going to be -5. If you're using an agile weapon, you get a little bit of a bonus, so it'll be -4. Now on your third attack, it's a -10 or -8 for agile. So usually you're not going to want to just hit. Usually you want to either set your hit up for be the best one you can by feinting at somebody, intimidating them, doing whatever you can to increase your bonus or decrease theirs. And then maybe you'll do 2 hits if you think you got a good bonus or something to modify that penalty. But 3 hits, -10 is a tall order. You're likely to critically fail with that. So just plan your attacks out accordingly and make sure you're using your best, kind of the best economy you can for your actions. So now that we touched on that, we're going to go over a little bit to map play, because this is something that's a variant rule in 5e, but it's the regular rule for Pathfinder 2e. Now, if you're moving, typical if you're moving 1 square either way, it's 5 feet, but diagonals are different. So if you go diagonal, 5 feet for the first, or kind of the square next to you, it's 5 feet for the first time. You go diagonal again, it's 10 feet. You go diagonal again, it's 5 feet, 10 feet, so on till you run out of movement. So just a little bit of a different change there. I wanted to call that out because this is the base rule. It was a variant, I think of the DMG or the Player's Handbook maybe in 5e, but this is how it's played base level. So just make sure you're calculating those correctly as you're going through. But after that, let's get into flanking. So flanking is cool. This is not a variant. This is baked into the system, and they did it in a much better way, in my opinion, that it gives you a bonus, but it's not broken. Excuse me. So with flanking and with Pathfinder 2e, you have to be kind of across from each other. So you'll see with this image, you have to be able to draw a line through the creature and reach your buddy. So if you're flanking them, you both have melee weapons, you're both able to attack and are not incapacitated, you're both going to get a +2 to hitting that creature. They're going to be kind of flat-footed between you guys. So I think that's a cool way to do that, and especially for this system, I think one of the best things is it encourages cooperative play. So work with your other marshals and make sure you guys are getting those bonuses or getting into better positions where you can go through and get that get that critical success and make sure you even just hit. So that's cool on that side. Last thing we're going to touch on today is cover. Cover matters here, and there's 3 levels of cover. So you can get lesser cover from just a creature. So if you're hiding behind a creature, it's between you and it's a smaller creature that's less than 2 sizes larger, bigger than you, you'll get lesser coverage. You can't hide behind them, but you do get a +1 bonus to AC. Now, if that creature is 2 sizes larger than you, you could treat it as standard cover, which is going to give you +2 AC, reflex, and stealth saves. Checks. So you'd have a +2 AC, +2 to your reflex saves, and a +2 to your stealth saves, and you can hide behind the creature. So that's applies to standard cover too. So if you're hiding behind a barrel, a wall, whatever it may be, you can apply that. Cool thing with the system is that take cover action. So you could spend one of your actions to take cover, and by doing so, you're going to get a +4 AC, +4 to your reflex, a +4 to your stealth, and you could also hide behind that too. So it just allows you to better utilize the cover and make sure you're harder to hit, which could be good in certain situations, especially if you're going up against somebody that hits hard or you're kind of facing a flock of archers. Hide behind there, get that cover going. So another thing I will say though too is cover is situational or position matters. So while you may be covered from the guy that's kind of in front of your barrel, there may be a guy to the side of the barrel that can see you. So talk to your GM, look at the map, see what makes sense, and make sure you're kind of applying that in a fair and realistic way to get those bonuses in. But yeah, that's kind of a quick look through the Pathfinder 2e combat rules. Now, real high level, we did touch on all of the actions, but I just want to give a good general feel of what you could do with this, the different actions that can apply to your PCs. So, in the comments, sound off on anything cool that I may have missed, or any of your favorite actions that you think are just really important to shout out, or even just something cool from Pathfinder 2e does that you think is just noteworthy and players should know about it. But also drop a follow, a like, subscribe if you haven't. Each month we pick a new game of the month. So once February hits, we'll be saying goodbye to Pathfinder and hello to a new system. But then don't make sure you come through to January 26th for our live actual play of the Pathfinder 2e system and your chance to win a copy of the PDF. But thank you guys for hanging out, and until next time.